More than 10 years ago now, I started a business selling business centers to hotels. This is the computer service that guests use when they're staying at a hotel. Now, back then, even things like Wi-Fi weren't as prevalent. So business guests would often not even travel with a laptop and need a computer to use when they're staying at the hotel. The way I grew this business was through direct sales. So me and my business partner would wheel in a computer attached to a small desk that demonstrated our system. We'd plug it in and we'd give a pitch to the front desk, and then we'd ask them to then introduce us to the general manager if they thought it was useful, and then give the same pitch to the general manager. And we'd spend a lot of time working on what we felt was a much, much better system than what was out there. At the time, most hotels had things like internet kiosks, so they had a fairly simple, robust system, but you could only open one browser window, you couldn't open documents, you couldn't print, you couldn't use things like Skype. And we had done all this. We really felt that we'd spent months and months working on a really superior system, and we built it on Linux, so it was really, really stable. It wasn't prone to viruses. I had spent 2 months just working on something simple like charging per page for printing through our billing system. And so we were, this was a bit hard work at the beginning, and we're about our 10th customer. And we walk into one hotel, do our thing, and pitch to the front desk. And the girl listens, and she's like, yeah, this is good. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I'll introduce you to the general manager. And she turns around. Turns out he was right behind and just working on something with his back to us. Taps him on the shoulder, and he turns around, and she says, hey, these guys can fix our USB drive problem. Now, what's the USB drive problem? The USB drive. As soon as she said that, we knew exactly what she meant. But we had never heard a potential customer describe what we do in that way. What she meant was that if you can imagine a hotel reception at 6 p.m., it's the busiest check-in time. So you have all of these guests lined up. You have maybe 2 people on reception checking people in, 3 people in line in front of each of those 2 people. They're just waiting to check in, getting away from, getting out of a taxi from the airport with their wheelie luggage, not feeling great, just wanting to get to their room. And one person will then get to the front of the line and produce a USB drive and say, hey, could you print 20 pages of this document for me? Now at that point, that person has to come off of their check-in duty, and it takes about 10 minutes of going back to the computer, checking the document, is this the right file? Would you like me to staple this? All of that stuff before you can send that guest off happy. But by the time you've done that, the other person doing check-in now has a line of like 10 people. It's really stressful, and it happens every day. So much to the point that it has a name, the USB drive problem. Now, as soon as we heard this, we knew what to do, right? The next hotels we went into, it changed what we said, right? We know what we do now. We fix the USB drive problem. But it also, as soon as we realized that was working, and that's really why hotels wanted to work with us and not with the typical internet kiosk, then it started to change other aspects. Because I remember I pointed out that I had spent 2 months working on just the billing system for printing. I ended up just deleting that code. We didn't need it. It wasn't useful. It was actually working against us. What we actually needed to do was say, hey, we're already charging you for your time to use the computer. If you need to print, that's okay, paper's free. And that allowed the hotel to get, when someone produced that USB drive, to say, oh, actually no, here, just take a card, go use one of our computers, and you can print what you need to. But as we then started to sell more using that technique, we started to realize that things were changing. We had thought we had a superior business center for superior hotels. This is a very good system for business people, so we should be targeting 4- and 5-star hotels that focus on business guests, naturally. Except for the hotels that have the USB drive problem are the ones that have fewer staff. And so that actually meant that we were more successful in targeting the 2- and 3-star hotels with our system. So altogether, this one thing, we got lucky. It changed the way we thought about our business, though. Hearing the customer describe what we do allowed us to understand what we should do.